URC round number 7. We did get some more games this week compared to last week. Remember last week with the whole new COVID variant meant half the games were called off. This week we did get the South African teams back in action earlier than expected, playing each other. They were supposed to be hosting some of the European teams, but we haven't seen that as yet. So yeah, we got 6 games underway. I only managed to see 2 in full, but I've seen the highlights of the rest. My mum and dad are about to move home. They've been staying with me for the last few days, and yeah, it's been rather cramped. The old boy and I have been watching a fair bit of rugby, but yeah, it's been kind of cramped in terms of getting some rugby done. So yeah, haven't seen as much as I would have liked to, and it's been a little bit harder this week because it seems like the South African games are not shown free to air in the European countries of the URC. So I tend to watch these games on BBC Two, S4C, and the 2 Irish channels with the old VPN. But I don't think they show the South African games, so that's kind of been a bit of a bother. The broadcasting situation here for the URC kind of sucks in New Zealand because the only official broadcaster who's not cheap shows half of the games every week, only the South African team. So it's a bit of a bother. People with their line trimmers, weed whackers, are out and about again. But yes, I've asked the parents to take my kids for a walk throughout the house, so we're going to get this done right now. We'll start with the Sharks and Bulls. I've seen the highlights. 30 points to 16 seems pretty lopsided. The game felt closer than that from what limited amount I saw of it. Obviously, the highlight doing the rounds is Leinster Arms' try, and that was a thing of beauty. They did have the early lead. When I say early, they couldn't score until about 20 minutes. But yeah, points on the board for the Sharks. Although they only got 3. They had gone close through Nkosi in the corner, but he couldn't take a pretty tough ball seemingly. So yeah, 3-0 early, but the Bulls got the first try through Creel. Did well to kind of reach out and put that one over. So yeah, he straightened his attacking line well, which was good to see. Sometimes all it takes is a guy running, cutting back in on the angle when defenders have kind of started to drift. And yep, there you go. He managed to reach out. So 7 points for 3 Bulls in front. But it seems like the Sharks scrum was having a bit of a field day, wasn't it? It certainly got them some points. It was like 13-9. At halftime, there was a bit of an exchange of penalties, but yeah, still very much game on with the Bulls being in front. But then from the Leinster arm intercept, the Sharks are away. They don't go back behind again. It was pretty glorious stuff, to be honest. He's got some proper good wheels, and he just reads that stuff like a book. He's such a defensively smart player, which is not always the kind of stuff you can coach, to kind of be able to read the game like he does. But anyway, eventually the Bulls get a yellow card. Too many scrum penalties. You don't see that very often where one of the props gets yellow carded, so that didn't do their cause any good. Sharks are up 25-16, and there's a nail in the coffin when they get the maul try through Van Vuren on 71 to make it 30 points to 16. They score 5 points in the yellow card. So, yeah, seemingly the Sharks kind of ran away with it. But, I mean, an intercept and then that kind of late try makes, I think, the scoreline seemingly blow out a bit. It felt closer than that from what, as I said, limited I saw. The Sharks had more possession and territory, but we're only talking like 5% more, 3% more. The Bulls knocked it on more, which was a bit concerning, 14-9, despite having less ball. Has 134 run meters. As I mentioned, he was very, very able to kind of clock up some run meters when he gets an intercept. Chamberlain, 20 points from the boot. Low number of tackles, 72-64 is the tackle count for both sides. 72 for the Sharks, 64 for the Bulls. That's a low tackle count. That's really, 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 really quite low. Like, some of the other games had a team making, like, was it 190? So, yeah, I don't know if it was very open and wide, and it meant that there was, fewer kind of phases going forward, and it was all wide and wonderful stuff, or it was a bit slow and not much ball and playtime. You guys will have to let me know. But either way, the Sharks are 2-3, they're 12th. The Bulls are 1-4, they are in 15th. So it's kind of not going that well for the Bulls. We'll see how they go, but we've got a bit of a break now in the United Rugby Championship, so we'll have to see when they can get back in action. Edinburgh, their run goes on. They beat Benetton 24 points to 10. Seemingly a pretty comfortable one. Again, I haven't seen this one in full either. I've seen the highlights, but Edinburgh have been just a very fun team to watch this year. I mean, so have Benetton. But Edinburgh have been getting the results. They are doing really quite well. They did go in front early though, Benetton with a penalty, but then Duvanaka got yellow carded for one of those deliberate knock-on ones where Edinburgh hot on attack. So with the extra man, Edinburgh running a couple of tries, which is what you want to see when you've got an extra man, right? They get one through Graham and one through Boffelli, who seems to be settling in pretty well up in the north of the UK. So good on him. He's a cracking player. I mean, I've loved watching him for the Warriors over the years and the Pumas. So good to see him settling in well. Benetton really didn't do themselves any favours. Like there's one try they conceded where I think Lamaro had just won a turnover, and then they are trying these crazy tip passes in their own 22. It seemed pretty bonkers stuff. So yeah, 17 points to 3. Kinghorn got that one, and they did get the bonus point try one through McAnally on 69. But I mean, the Zuliani try on 60 had kind of brought it at least back to game on. It was 17-10 when he got that try on the hour mark, but the McAnally one was kind of the nail in the coffin. So yeah, good bonus point win for Edinburgh. They are doing really well, man. They're 5 wins, a draw, and a loss. They're in second, doing amazingly well. Benetton, not so much. They're in 8th. They're 3 wins, 4 losses. So on the wrong side of that split at the moment. Darcy Graham, 116 run meters, 2 clean breaks, 6 defenders beaten. Pretty slick. Lamaro for Benetton, 19 out of 21 tackles is also pretty nice. Possession and territory is pretty split. Like Benetton had more territory, but Edinburgh had more possession. Run meters 442 to 294 kind of tells the story though. Edinburgh dominating those numbers. So yeah, it's another day, and especially I guess with the whole conference thing in terms of European qualification for Edinburgh to get a bonus point win here, pretty massive. So yeah, good result. The next one, Leinster and Connacht. I did watch this one. I did manage to see this one, and it's a weird one because it's a blowout, 47 points to 19. But the first half was pretty close. First half was, was a proper contest. The second half is really, really where it blows out. Like there's a few lead changes in this game. You wouldn't think so to look at the scoreboard, but I mean, Connacht won a scrum penalty early, which was which was pretty encouraging. It was back and forward. Mac Hansen got the first try of the game. He has a moment that he'll be having nightmares about later on, but he's still looking like a proper excite machine. Really got a good aerial take. I think it was Jack Carty's kick. Got up really well to grab that ball. 5 points to 0, but then, Leinster would turn the screws. Ruddock got a try. Sammy Arnold got a try. Ringrose got a try. It was real back and forth, but Sheehan's one, man. That one is sickening. Like, absolutely brutal stuff. Like, a hooker going down the right wing and stepping Hansen, a winger himself, is absolutely filthy. Amazing, but filthy. Goodness gracious me. Revoke that man's front row pass. That's not on. But yeah, absolutely brutal stuff. So 19-12 at half time. Ryan Beard had kind of a heart in the mouth moment where he tried to force a ball that was kicked through to the end goal. And he just looked like a giant. Like he should be yelling fee fi fo fum, right? Trying to go for that ball. He was just such a monstrous looking man bending over to try and collect that bouncing rugby ball. Was, he'll have nightmares about that himself. But they couldn't really... It was a bit comical, but they couldn't really get any clear evidence about that one. So it ended up being a 5-metre scrum to Connacht. And there was a guy in the crowd wearing a Father Ted t-shirt with the old... Was it Uncle Jack or whatever his name is? Yeah, that was a bit of a blast from the past. But yeah, 19-12 half-time. Proper game on. But the second half, man, like Leinster just keep up that speed that they'd been starting to accumulate towards the end of the first half. Lama gets one, and then a few minutes later, Doris gets one. Baird gets one of his own. Connacht do hit back with Oliver, but then Deegan gets one at the death. So yeah, man, the second half, it's getting pretty hairy. Connacht's one was a nice line-out move, but it was just at least trying to stop the momentum which they had. It was just brutal. Yeah, it looked like Connacht had got a leg under Ryan Baird's one for his try, but he managed to just kind of get it down on the whitewash. So yeah, 40 points to 19 at one point was a long way back when they got that try, and then one at the death, a wee bit of salt in the wound. So to be fair, Connacht fought right to the finish. So they were kind of chasing that fourth try, but with some loose ball, they couldn't get it done at the end. So, yep, no points for them. Connacht end up with more possession and territory, but Leinster more run meters, 523 to 460. Leinster have to make 182 tackles, but they do it pretty well. Connacht just 108. Lama beats 5 defenders. Van der Fleer makes 18 out of 20 tackles, so proper shift. Hansen, like I mentioned, he's proper dangerous. 102 run meters, 10 defenders beaten, and very rarely do guys get into double figures with the old defenders beaten. But 4 from 8 tackles. Maybe that's an area of his game he needs to kind of work on if he wants to kind of take it up to the next level. Cardi with a couple of try assists continues to impress this year in the old URC, so we'll see if he gets any kind of higher honours. I know he got called up into the Ireland squad towards the end of the autumn internationals, but there you go. There you go. Ospreys and Ulster. I also watched this one. I was kind of curious to see how this one would go because Ospreys, they were pretty badly beaten last week to fly. Ospreys, yeah, pretty disappointing last week. They got a bit of a hiding. And they're a bit of a team which seems to be mostly pretty good, but if things start to go rotten, it goes quite rotten. So it was pleasing, and Ulster absolutely on a high after giving Leinster a bloody nose last week when they beat them away from home. Ulster, so Ulster should have been flying high and maybe looking to do 2 games in a row. But Ospreys a great win. 19-13 is pretty low scoring, but that's the way Ospreys have kind of been playing it this year. Eh? They're quite a controlled team and able to. Kick more penalties and be defensively pretty sound. Now, when it went wrong last week, it went really wrong. But no, I'm actually quite enjoying watching them. I think they're gonna surprise a few people because they're not scoring 40 points. They're kind of easy to underestimate, but they have been pretty good. They did start with a yellow card though, with a deliberate knock on about 14 minutes when Ulster kind of had an overlap, and that's what leads to the penalty try. So it's not the greatest start for Ospreys, but interestingly, they kicked a penalty during the yellow card, so they got a man down. They make it 3 points to 7, and Ulster were kind of happy to take 3 during the yellow card period as well. So the yellow card finishes 3 points apiece, but that's a win for Ospreys. Surely, I was expecting Ulster to kind of turn the screws with the man down, but no, they didn't. So it was an interesting choice, but it was a kickable one, and they kicked it. So it's 10 points to 3. Yellow card finishes 3 apiece. Nagy had to go off with a shoulder injury, which was pretty nasty. Bradley Roberts went off with an injury, and there was a lot of knocks and injuries in this game. A lot of stoppages. It was quite slow in terms of guys just going down, and they were having to be treated, and they were legit going off. It wasn't like time wasting. So yeah, pretty kind of rough, pretty rough game. Seemingly, Ospreys did get a try before halftime well before halftime through Morris. On 32 minutes. To be fair, he did well to get the ball down because Ospreys were on attack and he got the ball in a position where it didn't look like he was going to have the power or like the reach to get over, but he had both. So, really well taken try. So both tries in the first half. We don't see any in the second half. Interestingly also, Ulster on 38 minutes, when Ospreys are on a yellow card warning, that's when they don't kick a goal. I mean, it was maybe a harder position to kick for, but they didn't go for the sticks. They tried to turn the screws when they did have the extra man. They kind of had the opposite logic. So it was an interesting, any way you look at it, if you get the points you're going for, it looks like you did made the right decision. And if you don't, it looks like the wrong one. So Ulster try to turn the screws. Ospreys defense hold, so it looks like it's wrong. But it's just interesting for mine that it's like when they had the extra man, they were happy to go for 3. When they didn't have the extra man, but they were trying to force the referee's hand, that's when they tried to turn the screws. So, yeah, just kind of an interesting one. 10 points to 13, I think it was, at halftime, was it? Or was that after the second half? Anyway, like I mentioned, rough game, lots of stoppages. It was still 10-13 after 65 minutes, and then it was 19-13 when Ospreys just kind of keep the scoreboard ticking over with penalties. Their scrum was looking the business, and for Ulster, didn't get any easier when you still got to start playing a loose head prop at hooker, to be fair. That's not going to do your... I mean, to be fair to Ospreys, their scrum was looking dominant before that happened, but yeah, they had to play O'Sullivan at hooker, which was not ideal. And Ulster were unlucky because they had a try chalked off as well. due to a kind of aerial knock-on, which was a few phases before the try, but the officiating team checked it out, and sure enough, they found the knock-on. So, yeah, O'Sullivan's first line-out throw, they went short, like to the front. I was like, smart. And the second one, they went to the middle, and I was like, what are you doing? And of course, it wasn't straight. So I guess they didn't want to be predictable. But man, if your prop is thrown into the line-out, you've just got to go to the front. Surely. Ospreys, credit to them. They won some really good turnovers in the last kind of 10 minutes when they were under a bit of Ulster pressure, where Ulster were trying to throw the kitchen sink at them. Like Lowry had a big line break. Timoney had a big line break, but Ospreys were kind of able to shut everything down. So yeah, good win for them, man. Ulster had 60% possession, 65% territory. Ospreys had to make 243 tackles. Like if you were around when I mentioned the Sharks and Bulls one, Sharks and Bulls 72 tackles to 64 tackles, whereas Ospreys on their own 243. That's a Herculean shift. Ulster make 96. Goal kicking's 100% both sides. Run meters 196 to 516. So if you just read the stats, you'd think Ulster had done the job, but like I mentioned, those tackle numbers, 94%, 200 plus tackles, that'll make the defensive coach pretty happy. Clean breaks is none to Ospreys, 4 to Ulster. So to keep Ulster down to 4, even though they don't generate any of their own, is actually a pretty solid shift from Ospreys as well. Lowry has 101 run meters, 1 clean break, and 4 defenders beaten. Solid. Bradley Davis, 28 out of 29 tackles. As I mentioned, quite the shift. Ospreys are 5-2 in 4th, which is a really good record. Ulster are now 3rd in the same record, 5-2. So yeah, interesting game. I quite enjoyed that, even if it wasn't like a big old tri-fest. Next one, Stormers and Lions. I didn't see this one. I kind of missed Newlands when I see the Stormers playing here. I know they had to move on from there, and the stadium does look pretty flash, but it's not Newlands, so it'll take me a little while to get that kind of nostalgia out of my system. If the Blues or whatever All Blacks ever move away from Eden Park, I'll probably get the same. I'm not sure what Newlands was like, but Eden Park's in some ways a bit of a dud. It's got a lot of history, but there's a lot of negatives about it. But anyway, I'm not sure what Newlands was like. I miss it looking at it on camera. Not that I've ever been there, which is a pity. One of those bucket list items you never got to do. But anyway, in terms of this game, Lions, man, good win. I didn't see this coming. 37 points to 19, really good win. Bonus point win, 2 tries to Hall, 1 to Warner, 1 to Chituka, who got man of the match. And then for the Stormers, Ungara got 1, Stanatla got 1, and Fenter got 1. So 3 tries for them. Couldn't get that 4th try bonus point. A lot of yellow cards, and the highlights have no context. Like I said, the South African games were particularly hard to find this week, and I failed. So, yeah, 5 yellow cards, which is crazy. That's really, really crazy. The Lions got the first score. Chituka had a hand in that, a really nice line break and a pass, which was great to see. But they apparently had two yellow cards, which the Stormers duly punished. It was great to see Fushi get the offload for 2 of the tries as well. The second one kind of looked a bit forward, but in terms of front rowers having a big shift, 2 try assists for him is crazy. The great hands on the big man. Similani also was really impressive, seemingly, like in terms of his highlights, some proper pace and footwork. He is another excitement machine player. I know the Boks always play and Delende, but there's heaps of Springbok midfielders, potential Springbok midfielders, South African midfielders that we would kind of like to see. Similani's got to be on that list somewhere. Apparently there was another yellow card, but during that period for the Lions, they managed to get Chituka's try, so yeah, they seem to do pretty well. Like it took them being down 2 men for the first Stormers try and 1 man for the second Stormers try. So, and then they got 1 try of their own when they had a man down. So they seem to be managing the yellow cards pretty well. But the Stormers had 2 of their own. But yeah, the Stormers couldn't get that first second half points, I think, until like 77 minutes, and by then the game was already gone. So yeah, and the Lions getting the bonus point try at the death, like icing on the cake, really good away win from them. So unexpected, I didn't pick it, but good on them. I'm pretty chuffed for them because I think the Lions is the second South African team's jersey I bought. First one I bought like 2018, I think. I had the Sharks one a wee bit before that, but yeah, always had a bit of a soft spot for the Lions, particularly around the 2018 time when they were very, very kind of top of the log Super Rugby team. But yeah, they've been down in the dumps a wee bit recent times, so it's good to have kind of a good news story for them at the minute. The Stormers, I think they've got the lowest tackling percentage of the week with 80%. So they seem pretty bad on defence. But then you got to give credit to the Lions. So like I mentioned, 5 yellow cards. The Lions conceded more penalties, but the Stormers turnovers conceded 23. That's pretty high. Most teams don't crack 20, so 23 is pretty high. The Lions had 14, which is kind of normal, maybe even a little high. Possession 62-38, territory 66-34. That's in favour of the Stormers, but run meters is pretty tight, 449 to 457. So seemingly the Lions able to do more with less. Clean breaks 9-5 to the Lions. That's what I'm talking about. Less ball, but kind of more action. I mentioned Fisher had a couple of tries, which was great. Evan Roos had 59 run meters, so he continues to impress. Another one who's, potential going forward. Chituka, man of the match, 17 tackles from him, gets a try. Udendal seemed to have the bossing of the midfield with 9-yard run meters, beating 5 defenders, getting 3 clean breaks is not something I necessarily associate with him. I'm kind of thinking more of him as kind of a hard-working, defensively sound, and sometimes gets a few defenders beaten midfielder, but 3 clean breaks is a good shift. So, yeah, good stuff from the Lions. What else can I say? Really well done. So we'll see how they go once they get back in action, but it's going to be a bit of a break until we get to see them, I think, Christmas time. But anyway, as I said, good win. What's going wrong with the Stormers? The last game was Glasgow and Dragons. I'd heard a little bit about this one prior to watching the highlights. I'd heard that Jack Dempsey had a bit of a massive shift, but it was Tuipulotu early, kind of powering over from close range, and he's doing really well over in Scotland as well. Kyle Steyn got one. Dempsey did show up on 40 minutes from the back of that scrum. Proved very kind of hard to bring down. He finishes with some nice numbers, which I will get to. And they got one through Price with a nice little dummy, side of the ruck kind of thing. He gets a try assist as well. And Matthews won on 71 minutes. Dragons do get 2 in the second half, Ship and Dogier. So, but it's mostly too little too late stuff for them. I mean, what was the score? It was like 26-0 on the hour mark. They've already got the bonus point, Glasgow. 26 points up. I mean, their backs have been looking slick. I mean, Edinburgh and Glasgow, to be fair, are quite fun teams to watch at the moment. Really, really good skills like cross kicks and all kinds of just glorious stuff, really. So, yeah, very, very nice. Dragons did, like I mentioned, they got on the ball, but it wasn't their day. It was kind of my note. They got a last consolation one at the end, but yeah, 33-14. Their season's not going that great. I forgot to mention the Lions and the Stormers. I'll get to them in a second in terms of their rankings. But I mean, Glasgow are 4-3. They're in 5th. The Dragons are 1-6 and 13th. So it's been a bit of a tough one. I mean, in this game, run meters 576 to 261, and Dempsey, he gets like 90. 3 clean breaks from him as well. Not something you expect from a Lucy. 6 defenders beaten. The Dragons flanker Griffiths gets 22 out of 24 tackles, which is also, in most weeks, that'd be maybe the top guy, but he's not quite there this week. But yeah, still a very big shift in the scheme of that game. Price, like I mentioned, gets a try assist. Clean breaks is 10-2. Offloads is 11-3. All in Glasgow's favour. But then again, knock-ons is 12-4. So you chuck the ball around. Sometimes you cough it up. But imagine if they had not knocked it on that much. They might have even had more points. I forgot to mention the Stormers are 2-3. The Lions are 2-3. They're in 10th. The Stormers are a win, a draw, and a loss. A win, a draw, and 3 losses. They wish. So it's 14th for them. But yeah, so I think that's we'll get a little bit of a break in the URC for the moment because we've got the Champions Cup and Challenge Cup coming up. I'm not sure what the South African teams are going to be doing. I need to double check what the fixtures list was going to be like because it's going to be all adjusted, I would imagine. I seem to remember during the Six Nations that the South African teams keep going. But I think at the moment, correct me if I'm wrong, but they'll be taking a bit of time off again. So they've only kind of been 1 game back in after last week's games were cancelled and then 1 game on and then more time off. So it's a bit messy, but with the pandemic, I guess we do what we can. So, yeah, goodness me, 24 minutes. I better wrap things up. You guys let me know your thoughts on the games. Which ones did you kind of appreciate the most? If you did watch any of them in full, do give us more insights into what was going on. What do you expect from these teams when we get back from the break? And, yeah, I will talk to you guys again soon. See you later.